Click, 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 click. Every single click of that key, a letter encoded. Every single message sent, impossible to read. Every single order issued, completely safe from Allied eyes. Or so the Germans believed. For the first 3 years of World War II, Nazi Germany had a secret weapon. Not a bomb, not a tank, not a fighter jet, a machine. And that machine, this machine, the Enigma, was the reason German forces moved faster, struck harder, and communicated more securely than anyone in history had ever managed before. Until the day it wasn't. What you are about to hear is one of the most extraordinary stories in all of human history. It involves a machine invented by a German engineer after World War I. It involves the most brilliant mathematicians and codebreakers ever assembled in one place. It involves a secret so important that the people who kept it took it to their graves for over 30 years. And it involves a question that historians still debate today. Did breaking the Enigma code shorten World War II by 2 years or by 4? Either answer means millions of lives saved. My name is Your Name. And today, for the next 30 minutes, we are going to go deep. We are going to understand exactly what the Enigma machine was, how it worked, why it seemed mathematically unbreakable, how the Allies broke it anyway, and why this story was buried in classified files until 1974, nearly 30 years after the war ended. By the end of this video, you will understand one of the most consequential technological battles ever fought, and you will never look at a keyboard the same way again. Let us start at the very beginning. Chapter 1. The Birth of Enigma, a machine born from defeat. The year is 1918. Germany has just lost World War I. The German military is humiliated, its navy dismantled, its army capped at 100,000 men by the Treaty of Versailles. The country is in economic ruin, and in Berlin, a 35-year-old electrical engineer named Arthur Scourbius has an idea. Scourbius had been fascinated for years by the problem of secure communication. In war, whoever controls information controls the battlefield. Codes had been used for centuries, but they were all breakable, given enough time and intelligence. What if, Scourbius thought, you could build a machine that automatically encoded messages? A machine so mathematically complex that even if an enemy captured it, even if they knew exactly how it worked, they still could not decode a single message without knowing the exact settings used that day. In 1918, Scourbius filed a patent for his invention. He called it the Enigma, from the Latin word for riddle or mystery. The machine looked, at first glance, like a typewriter. It had a keyboard. It had lights. It had a wooden or metal case you could carry. But inside was something extraordinary. How the machine actually worked. At the heart of the Enigma were rotors, small disks, each wired internally so that pressing a key sent an electrical signal through the rotor, scrambling it. The signal then passed through a second rotor, scrambling it again. Then a third. Then it hit a reflector, which sent the signal back through all 3 rotors in reverse, scrambling it 3 more times. The result lit up a different letter on a light board. Here is the genius and the terrifying complexity of the system. Every single time you pressed a key, the first rotor advanced 1 position, like an odometer on a car. After 26 key presses, the second rotor advanced. After another 26 squared, the third rotor advanced. This meant that the same letter pressed twice in a row would almost never produce the same encoded letter twice in a row. But that was just the beginning. The military version of the Enigma added a plug board, called the Steckerbrett, at the front. Before encoding began, an operator would physically connect pairs of letters using cables, swapping them. If A was connected to Q, every A became Q before it even entered the rotors. And every Q became A. The number of possible configurations of the military Enigma was staggering. Historians and mathematicians have calculated it as approximately 158 quintillion possible settings. That is 158 followed by 18 zeros. To put that in perspective, if you tried every single setting, 1 per second, it would take you 5 billion years to try them all. The universe is only 14 billion years old. The Germans were confident. They had every reason to be. The Enigma was not just good. It was, by any reasonable measure, mathematically unbreakable. And for years, it was. Chapter 2. The Germans trust their machine and pay the price. By the time Adolf Hitler came to power in 1933, the German military had fully adopted the Enigma. The army used it. The Navy used it. The Air Force used it. Even the railways and the SS used modified versions. Every morning, operators across the entire German military received new settings sheets, paper documents listing the day's rotor order, starting positions, and plug board connections. At midnight, the settings changed. Every 24 hours, the entire system reset, and the Germans communicated freely. Naval commanders issued U-boat patrol orders over encrypted radio. Luftwaffe squadrons received bombing coordinates in Enigma cipher. Army generals coordinated entire offensives, encoded, transmitted, and decoded within minutes. The system worked. It worked brilliantly. In the early years of the war, Germany's military coordination was a marvel of modern warfare, precise, fast, and above all, secret. Nowhere was this more devastating than in the Battle of the Atlantic. German U-boats, submarines, were hunting Allied supply ships crossing from North America to Britain. Britain was an island nation. Everything it needed to fight the war, food, fuel, weapons, soldiers, tanks, had to come across the Atlantic by ship. And the U-boats were finding those ships with terrifying accuracy. German U-boats, submarines, were hunting Allied supply ships crossing from North America to Britain. Britain was an island nation. Everything it needed to fight the war, food, fuel, weapons, soldiers, tanks, had to come across the Atlantic by ship. And the U-boats were finding those ships with terrifying accuracy. The first cracks, Poland's secret gift. Here is something that often gets left out of the popular story of Enigma. The British did not break Enigma first. The Poles did. In the early 1930s, Polish military intelligence had become deeply alarmed by German rearmament. They knew Germany was using the Enigma machine. They needed to break it. They recruited 3 brilliant young mathematicians from Poznan University, Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rositzky, and Henryk Zygalski. All 3 were in their mid-20s. All 3 were fluent in German. And all 3 were mathematical geniuses. Working from a stolen copy of the Enigma manual, obtained by French intelligence from a German spy, and a reconstructed Enigma machine built from scratch using only mathematical deduction, Rejewski cracked the basic wiring of the Enigma rotors by 1932. By 1938, the Polish team had built mechanical devices, called bomba machines, that could cycle through Enigma settings automatically, searching for the correct configuration. But then Germany changed the system, adding 2 more rotors and dramatically expanding the number of plugboard connections. The Polish bomba could no longer keep up. In July 1939, just weeks before Germany invaded Poland, the Polish mathematicians met in secret with British and French intelligence. They handed over everything: their research, their reconstructed Enigma machines, their bomba designs. It was one of the most important intelligence handoffs in history, and it gave Alan Turing the foundation he needed. Chapter 3. Bletchley Park, the secret factory of secrets. 50 miles north of London, in the English countryside, sat an unremarkable Victorian mansion called Bletchley Park. Before the war, it had been a private estate. By 1939, it had been quietly purchased by the British government and transformed into the most important intelligence facility on Earth. Its official cover name was Station X. Its real purpose: to break every code the enemy used. The people recruited to Bletchley Park were extraordinary and deliberately strange. The recruitment process targeted crossword puzzle champions, chess grandmasters, classical musicians, linguists, and academic mathematicians. The logic was simple. The people most likely to break a code were people whose minds naturally worked differently from everyone else. In 1942, British intelligence placed a secret notice in the Daily Telegraph newspaper: a crossword puzzle with a 12-minute time limit. Those who could complete it were quietly approached afterwards and invited to attend a mysterious meeting. Many of Bletchley's best codebreakers were recruited this way. At its peak, Bletchley Park employed nearly 10,000 people. Most of them had no idea what the others were working on. The facility was divided into wooden huts. Each hut assigned a different cipher system, a different enemy service, a different problem. The huts did not share information unless they absolutely had to. The secrecy within the secrecy was total. Alan Turing arrives. In September 1939, the day Britain declared war on Germany, a 27-year-old mathematician from Cambridge University arrived at Bletchley Park. His name was Alan Turing. Turing was already famous in mathematical circles for a 1936 paper in which he had described a theoretical machine, now called the Turing machine, that could solve any mathematical problem, given enough time and the right instructions. It was the theoretical foundation of the modern computer. At Bletchley, Turing was assigned to Hut 8, responsible for cracking German naval Enigma. The naval cipher was the hardest version. The U-boats were the most deadly threat, and Turing was the man they believed could break it. He almost immediately identified the fundamental problem with the Polish Bombo approach. The Bombo worked by trying possible settings mechanically, one after another. But with the expanded German naval Enigma, with its increased rotor options and plugboard complexity, the number of settings to try was so enormous that no mechanical device could cycle through them fast enough before the settings changed at midnight. Turing realized you could not crack Enigma by brute force. You needed a smarter approach. And he found one. The bomb, thinking like the enemy. Turing's insight was this. Instead of searching for the correct Enigma settings randomly, you could use the Germans' own behavior against them. German Enigma operators were human, and humans are creatures of habit. Operators frequently began messages with predictable phrases, standard military greetings, weather reports that always started the same way, status updates with fixed formats. Turing called these cribs, known or guessed portions of plaintext that corresponded to sections of ciphertext. If you knew, or could guess, that a message beginning with a certain cipher sequence probably decoded to a standard German phrase like "nothing to report" or "weather forecast," you could use that relationship to dramatically narrow the search space. Turing designed a machine, the bomb, that could rapidly test Enigma settings based on these cribs. The bomb did not try every possible setting. It eliminated contradictions. It found settings that were logically consistent with the known crib. It was not brute force. It was logical deduction at mechanical speed. The first bomb was operational in March 1940. By the end of the war, Bletchley Park was running over 200 bomb machines simultaneously, processing thousands of Enigma messages every single day. Chapter 4. The pinch operations, stealing the keys. The bomb was powerful, but it still needed cribs, known pieces of text, to work efficiently. And to use cribs effectively, code breakers needed something else. The actual Enigma settings sheets that German operators used each day, which meant the Allies needed to steal them. A series of daring intelligence operations, known as pinch operations, were launched with a single goal: capture German Enigma machines and their associated codebooks before the enemy could destroy them. The capture of U-110, May 1941. On May 9, 1941, a Royal Navy escort group in the North Atlantic depth-charged a German submarine, U-110, and forced it to the surface. The German commander, believing his vessel was sinking, ordered his crew to abandon ship and scuttle the submarine. The crew jumped into the water. The scuttling charges were set, but the charges failed to detonate. Within minutes, a boarding party of British sailors, led by Sub-Lieutenant David Baum, just 20 years old, scrambled down into the stricken submarine. What they found inside was beyond any intelligence officer's wildest expectation. An Enigma machine, complete, intact, still set to that day's settings. A full set of settings sheets for the coming weeks. Code books, signal books, charts, cipher documents. The entire German naval cipher library, handed to British intelligence on a plate. The German crew, treading water nearby, watched helplessly as the British sailors worked. The U-boat was carefully taken under tow, then deliberately sunk once all documents were removed, so no German aircraft could photograph the boarding. The German crew were taken prisoner and held in complete isolation, forbidden from any communication, so they could not warn Berlin that their codes were compromised. At Bletchley Park, the impact was immediate and electric. Within days, codebreakers were reading German naval communications in near real time. U-boat positions, patrol routes, supply schedules, attack orders. The tide in the Atlantic had turned, and the Germans had no idea why. Other pinch operations. U-110 was not the only source. Throughout 1941 and 1942, the Allies ran a series of brilliant pinch operations targeting German weather ships, lightly armed vessels that transmitted meteorological data using Enigma, but were not equipped for serious combat. In May 1941, HMS Somali boarded the German weather ship Machine and captured an entire Enigma setup before the crew could destroy it. A month later, HMS Tartar captured the weather ship Lauenburg. In North Africa, British commandos raided German positions specifically to capture Enigma machines and codebooks from armored vehicles and command posts. Each capture gave Bletchley Park another key, another window into German communications. Another advantage that the Germans, confident in their machine, never suspected. Chapter 5. Ultra, the intelligence that won the war. The intelligence produced by breaking Enigma was given a code name, Ultra. And Ultra was the most closely guarded secret of the entire war. More tightly protected than the atomic bomb project, more restricted than any military plan. The reason was simple and terrifying. If Germany discovered that their codes were broken, they would change the system. And everything Bletchley Park had built, every bomb machine, every codebreaker, every procedure, every accumulated advantage, would be worthless overnight. So the Allies went to extraordinary lengths to hide what they knew. The problem of acting on intelligence. Every piece of ultra-intelligence created a dangerous problem. How do you act on it without revealing that you have it? If German commanders sent an Enigma encrypted order positioning a convoy at a specific location, and a British naval force appeared there within hours, the Germans might wonder how the British knew. They might suspect their codes were broken. The solution was elaborate and brilliant. Whenever the Allies used ultra-intelligence, they always arranged a cover story. A reconnaissance aircraft would be sent to accidentally discover the convoy. A network of fictional spies would be credited with the intelligence. The actual source, the decoded Enigma signal, was never referenced in any orders, any reports, or any communications. Ultra-derived intelligence was distributed on special pink message forms that had to be destroyed after reading. The existence of the program was known to fewer than a dozen senior commanders on each side. Even generals making decisions based on Ultra were sometimes not told the source. They were simply given information and told to trust it. How Ultra changed the war. The operational impact of Ultra is almost impossible to overstate. In North Africa, Ultra gave General Bernard Montgomery advanced knowledge of Rommel's supply situation, his fuel reserves, his planned offensives, and the routes of his supply convoys crossing the Mediterranean. Allied air and naval forces, armed with ultra-intelligence, sank ship after ship carrying fuel and ammunition to the Africa core. Rommel's desert war was strangled by intelligence he did not know existed. In the Atlantic, Ultra transformed the Battle of the Atlantic. U-boat positions reported in Enigma signals were forwarded to the Admiralty, which rerouted convoys around wolf packs before they could strike. U-boats that surfaced to communicate were located by direction-finding equipment and sunk before their crews understood what had happened. In 1942, German submarines sank 1,664 Allied ships. By 1944, with Ultra running at full capacity, that number had fallen by over 80%. The Atlantic lifeline to Britain was secured. At the strategic level, Ultra gave Allied planners at the highest levels a window into Hitler's mind. His orders to his generals, his assessments of the war, his fears, his intentions. Before the D-Day landings in June 1944, Ultra confirmed that the elaborate Allied deception operation, convincing Hitler that the main invasion would come at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy, was working. Even after Allied troops landed on the Normandy beaches, Ultra showed that Hitler still believed the Normandy landings were a feint, and held his panzer reserves back for weeks waiting for an attack that never came. Those weeks were decisive. The beachhead held. Europe was liberated. Chapter 6. The human stories behind the machine. We have talked about machines and mathematics. But Bletchley Park was, above all, a place of extraordinary human beings. And their stories deserve to be told. Alan Turing, genius, savior, victim. Alan Turing is now celebrated as the father of modern computing. His image appears on the British £50 note. Films have been made about his life. Universities, institutes, and awards bear his name. But in his own lifetime, the British government that he had served at the very highest level, whose war he had helped to win, persecuted him. In 1952, Turing was arrested and prosecuted for gross indecency, the crime of being a gay man in a country where homosexuality was illegal. He was convicted. Rather than prison, he accepted chemical castration, a course of hormone injections, as his sentence. In June 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home. He had taken a bite from an apple laced with cyanide. He was 41 years old. The full story of what he had done at Bletchley Park, the codes he had broken, the lives he had saved, the war he had helped to win, was still classified, would remain classified for another 20 years. His family, his friends, his colleagues could say nothing. The man who may have done more than any other individual to win the Second World War died a convicted criminal, his greatest achievement a secret. He received a royal pardon in 2013, 59 years after his death. The 10,000 who stayed silent. Nearly 10,000 people worked at Bletchley Park at its peak. The majority of them were women, working as code breakers, bomb operators, analysts, and linguists. Many were among the most intellectually formidable people in Britain, and almost none of them ever received public recognition for what they had done. When the war ended, every person who left Bletchley Park signed the Official Secrets Act. They were forbidden from telling anyone, their parents, their spouses, their children, what they had done during the war. When people asked, they said they had done clerical work, office jobs, nothing interesting. For 30 years, until 1974, when the first official account was published, they kept that secret. Veterans of Bletchley Park went to reunions and could not speak to each other about the work they had shared. They watched films about the war and sat silently as their contribution went unmentioned. Some of them only told their families the truth in the 1990s and 2000s, when they were in their 70s and 80s. Their silence was perhaps the most extraordinary act of collective discipline in the history of intelligence. And it worked completely. Chapter 7. The Legacy: How Enigma Shaped the Modern World. The story of Enigma did not end in 1945. The work done at Bletchley Park, Turing's theoretical foundations, the engineering of the bomb, the logical processes developed to break complex ciphers, laid the intellectual groundwork for the modern computer. The bomb was not a computer in the modern sense, but it was a programmable, electromechanical device that processed information according to logical rules. It was a prototype of an idea that would change the world. After the war, Turing went on to design one of the first true stored program computers. His 1950 paper introducing the concept of artificial intelligence, and the Turing test, still used today as a benchmark for machine intelligence, made him the founding father of the field that now drives every smartphone, every search engine, every AI system on the planet. And encryption, the direct descendant of the problems Enigma posed and Bletchley Park solved, is now embedded in every corner of modern life. When you send a WhatsApp message, it is end-to-end encrypted. When you log into your bank, your connection is protected by cryptographic protocols. When governments communicate, they use cipher systems that are direct descendants of the intellectual tradition that Enigma launched. The battle between codemakers and codebreakers that Arthur Scourbius and Alan Turing fought across the years of World War II, that battle never ended. It simply moved. From wooden huts in the English countryside to server farms in Virginia and data centers in Shanghai. Every time you use a password, every time a message is encrypted, every time a nation tries to keep its communications secret, the ghost of the Enigma machine is there. A machine invented by a German engineer to protect his country's secrets. Captured, analyzed, and broken by a group of British mathematicians, crossword addicts, chess champions, and linguists working in wooden huts in the English countryside, hidden from the world for 30 years. Its heroes prosecuted, silenced, and forgotten. And its legacy? Every computer you have ever touched, every encrypted message you have ever sent, every piece of artificial intelligence that will shape the next century of human history. The Enigma machine did not just change World War II. It changed everything. If this video went as deep as you hoped, leave a comment telling me which part of the Enigma story you had never heard before. I want to know. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week we are going further into the secret war. And if you share this video with one person who thinks they know World War II, I guarantee it will change what they know. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.